Kacy Fleming back at the kitchen table, my girl. I am so damn happy that you are here with
Thank
us in all of your beauty.
I just hugged you in my screen background. Just went crazy. Did you see that?
I did see that. I liked it. I liked it. I liked it. Girl, there's so many places I want to take this beautiful kitchen table conversation with you. And I want to start back to when you and I were in Miami celebrating a very dear mutual friend of ours, Jen Fisher. You and I are elbow to elbow having this like beautiful moment. And I had said to you, girl, I think I had a panic attack last week. Do you remember this?
I do. I remember the bar. I remember the bartender. I remember the cocktail, and I remember the conversation.
Yes. And you had delivered to me something that blew my mind. Do you mind sharing it with our tribe where this conversation went?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think let me back it up 1 second because you and I are both people who have openly talked about or have struggled with some form of anxiety
Mm,
disorder past, right?
hmm.
And so even though, it may still be kind of a daily struggle, we're people who have worked on this and have found tools. And
Yeah.
yes, sometimes they fail us, but for the most part, we're like, oh, I know what this is. Here we go again. Here's how I deal with it. And
Yes.
what was interesting for me about that moment was you said, it's back again. Like it's back
Mm,
and it's panic. And
mm,
I said, remind me how old you are? And you said, I'm 40. And I said, could be perimenopause.
mm,
And, you know, I think 5 years ago, if I'd have said that to someone in her early 40s, she probably would
mm,
have hit, right? And that's the beauty of the conversation now
mm,
is that this is not, number one, a disease, it's a life stage.
mm,
Or two, this is not something that happens when we're 50 and gray or, wearing all red and hot grannies, right? Like, I think people thought of this as like a granny
mm-hmm.
disease, and it's neither a disease nor for grannies. Now, sure, there could be a granny in her 40s, but, and rock out to all those grannies,
Mm-hmm.
but this is something that starts happening to women 7 to 10 years before they go through the menopause,
Mm,
the 1 day, 365 days after they've gone with no period. And if you do the math on that, and the average age is 51, 52 in the US, depending on where you look, that makes most women
mm,
41.
mm,
And what's even more fascinating, and I thought this was crap when I first heard it, but it's true, is if you've never born a child,
mm,
then you have cycled more. You haven't had that break from cycling, and you can go into peri earlier or
mm,
menopause earlier. And so there's so many factors that affect this for each woman, and it's different for
mm.
each woman. But the one thing that I have probably seen more than hot flashes and night sweats, which everyone loves to talk about, is sudden onset of panic.
Mm,
A lot of times at night, you wake up with a startle, or you wake up in the morning startled, um, or new onset or worsening anxiety or depression. And that is why I said that to you,
yeah.
because this is what almost took me out, was that I really thought I needed to be institutionalized. And I'd never been depressed
Mm,
and I'd not been suicidal. I'm sure I've been homicidal at times, but you came from the corporate world. But I've never been somebody who had ideation and didn't even know what it looked like. I thought
mm.
made a plan, you made a list, you knew what you were going to do, and that wasn't me. And now suddenly here I was sitting on my couch, like, why am I still here? Should I walk off a roof? Do I have purpose? And so I really started talking about this and talking to women because your panic, sure, it could have been something going on in your life. And I think that's what happens during this phase is we think, okay, yeah, I'm aging. For some of us, there's kids. For some of
Mm,
us, there's aging parents. For some
mm,
of us, there's aging in-laws. There's partners.
yeah.
There's work. We're at the peaks of our careers. So there's so many other factors that are kind of in your brain that the last thing you grab for, if you don't know it, is perimenopause. And
Mm.
in many cases, that's exactly what this is.
Girl, taking me to church. We're not even 10 minutes into this. And I'm like, foof and praise be. I got to tell you, Case, and I love that you talked about this. And I had thought that I was well educated, knew my body. And after having this moment with you in Miami, when you dropped a word that was so foreign to me, perimenopausal, I thought to myself, God, I was one of those people that thought menopause is 50 and hot flashes.
You're
And
not alone.
yeah. And so I want to talk to you, Case. I would love for you to share your wisdom with us because you had said this, and I love this, especially for us that have struggled with the anxiety, with the depression, with the 75 tabs blaring in our mind at all hours. And it's easy to go back and revert to here it is again. How do we know, or what can we look for, or where do we start to think, wait, is this perimenopausal? Is it this stage of life that I'm in? Any nuggets to bestow upon us on that?
The first thing I'll say, and the reason I talk about this is I want women to have grace for themselves, right?
Mm,
When this comes up, if it comes up in a mental health form, right? I kind of find in talking to women that, menopause goes after our Achilles heel, whatever it is, right? If it
right?
was gut health we had challenges with before, maybe it's going to show up there. If it was, mental health challenges we experienced it before, maybe it's going to show up there. Maybe it's not, right? If you know one woman's perimenopause, you know one woman's
Mm,
perimenopause. They're all different, right? But there is a great scale. I have it for free on the Fuchsia tent. It's called the Green Scale. It is from, believe it or not, hold your breath, 1976. A male doctor created a scale and did a bunch of research and validated kind of these different symptoms that women have. And what we think of when we think of peri so often is what we call vasomotor symptoms. So things like hot flashes, night sweats, anything that affects temperature in the body. But the green scale is brilliant because it also gets into kind of the mental health, the sleep components, the physical aspects of the body. And I think what people don't realize is that we've not even like tapped a corner on like what the potential symptoms are that can come along with perimenopause because estrogen receptors exist everywhere in our entire bodies. They exist all throughout. And I'll preface this by saying I am not a doctor. I've just done 500 hours of research. So
oh,
people, please go see a doctor when you're hearing this. Don't just take my word for it, but you take the green scale to your doctor. You pull it up, you download it for free off the fuchsia10.com, and then you put your symptoms in there. You can chart everything, how severe they are. And you want to take that with you when you go have a conversation about perimenopause. And you want to make sure that you set an appointment specifically to talk about perimenopause. Do not set it as your annual. You will get
mm,
blown off by your doctor who's rushing to do a pap smear and write your mammogram prescription and talk to you about your sexual history or anything like that. Make sure you set a separate appointment if you think you have symptoms to talk about it. And then you take your green scale that you filled out to your doctor, and they may poo poo it and they may poo poo you. And that's when it's time to find another doctor.
mm,
But that is what I would say is number one, have grace. You're not losing your mind. Something is wrong in your body, right? It could be that you're losing estrogen and that's setting off a cascade of things all throughout your system. And this could be the beginning. Get yourself the green scale for free, print it off, take it, do your little, take it like a Cosmo quiz, right? Back in the day, I'm dating myself, but like it's not, it doesn't have like a tally where you tally it and you're like, yay, I'm in perimenopause. Like there's no like, sister, you may be there. Sister, you're not there yet. Like
mhm.
you're just telling it to be aware. And then your doctor, hopefully, will know what to do about it. And we can talk about what happens if they don't. But that's what I would say. There is no blood test or saliva test. There is a lot of garbage on the internet. And what I want
Mm,
here, and sadly, it's coming from medical professionals sometimes. What I want to say is, in order to test somebody and their hormone levels, you would have to test them through blood, not saliva, multiple times per month to even know where someone's hormones are. One time point does not tell you whether or not somebody is in perimenopause. And so women are wasting money to get these tests done because they want to know definitively. And I am guessing we are probably only a couple years away from somebody figuring this out. I mean, people are looking into this area, but it doesn't exist yet, and it's not a saliva test, right? Not even a match for your hormones. So don't waste your money. You can get them tested, but know that it's probably not going to tell you anything. The only thing that is really going to tell you in the way that good menopause doctors diagnose this condition, right? Not condition, life stage, right now. See, I'm like, it's in my brain.
yeah.
Is through symptom history. So you give kind of your symptoms and what you're going through. And, right, if you've gone 365 days with no period, then they can give you a blood test to say if you're definitively in menopause or not, right? But that is what we've got right now. And then
Mm,
we've got a bunch of like crap science, right? And that's where this gets dangerous because there are 75 million women in the United States who are in menopause. There are 6,000 women each day going into perimenopause.
mm,
And there's a lot of money to be made. And so
mm,
that is where I try to that's really the why behind the Fuchsia tent. Like I don't want you wasting your money, right?
mm.
Like on things. That's not saying don't go to a doctor. Go to a doctor. That's not saying don't take the green scale with you. Do that. But taking an at-home kit or, whatever, this is not a real thing. It's not
Case,
real.
I love, well, so many things that I love that you said. And the first thing that I want to shout out, because I don't feel like we talk about this enough, at least in my world, I was never taught to talk about this, to find a doctor that you feel a connection with. And if you take the green scale and they say no, but you feel in your gut that like go find another doctor, like get a second opinion. I think we put so much weight on, well, that's what my doctor said, so that must be true. And as women, we have this beautiful fucking intuition that we just shrug off. So I love you for shouting that out. And the other thing I want to talk about, I want to talk about this beautiful community that you've created with the Fuchsia tent, because I got to tell you, Case, after you and I had that moment in Miami and my mind was fucking blown, coming back and talking to all these beautiful women, I was like, let me tell you about perimenopause. And they were like, shit, girl, even thought of that. So all of these conversations, that spurred off that one moment that you and I had. And I love you sharing about your why behind the Fuchsia tent. Girl, tell us about this community that you've built, what we can find there, to lay it all out for us on the Fuchsia tent.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk about it. But again, this started as here I was, right? This 22-year pharmaceutical veteran with a healthcare based family, all the privilege that life could afford me within reason and that I'd worked for and living in a city with the best doctors. And when this hit, I was like, I had no idea, right? It was
Mm,
like just like you, it came out of nowhere. And I thought to myself, wow, if this is my experience, right?
mm,
What does this look like for somebody across the country, middle of the country, in a rural area, without a lot of sisters around her to talk to,
yeah.
without, a reproductive endocrinologist for hundreds of miles, maybe thousands of miles, right? And how does she get information? And so I knew that there was a component of this that I really wanted to be free. I wanted
Mm.
access for all women. That's one of the tent posts of my mission is their clarity, simplicity, access, and support for all. And so there's a fuchsia list. This is on the website. That was where my brain started with this process. It wasn't community, it was a list. And what this is it's a proprietary aggregation tool that I classify by 5 eyes to help you kind of evaluate solutions based on what you can spend, how comfortable you are inserting things in your body or having injections, whether or not you want hormones or you want to
Mm,
start without them, all of these different things. And then you can really see all the options. And it's got copay information and direct connects to sites for people so they don't have to do the searching. And that is all free at the Fuchsia tent. That's called the Fuchsia list. And then there's a resources page where I have things like the green scale, like I think I'm in perimenopause, what now?
hmm
It just kind of helps you. Like, I need to go see my doctor. How do I do that? Like, what are hormones? I keep hearing bioidentical. I keep hearing this other kind of hormone. Like, what's the difference? So
Right.
it breaks kind of all that information down for you. And then there's the community. So everything I talked about up till now is free. So if people are not taking advantage of it, you need to go and take advantage of it, right? Because don't make me do the research for nobody, right? I want
Yeah.
you to take advantage of it. Then there's the community, and the community is a private membership based community. I also keep the charge extremely low because, again, I want access. But what we do is we have 3 experts in the community every single month. Sometimes it's me plus two. I do an Ask Me Anything every month based on kind of the top burning question I'm hearing or something I've experienced out in the Menoverse that I want to bring. But then there's 2 other people, and we usually do 45-minute live tapings. You can come live or they're on demand. Everything is kept for you in the community. And we have over 20 recordings already. We just started in June. But I think what's so groovy about the community, aside from the women in it, which really make the community, are the experts that we bring in.
Mm,
So I have only women. That's my rule. It's for women by women.
mm,
That doesn't mean that if you identify differently and you have a uterus, you're not welcome. You are 100% welcome. Everybody is. It just means that from a founder perspective, I really wanted to highlight female founders. I did not like hearing men talk about menopause. Not that they can't or shouldn't or
mm,
that we don't need them as allies,
mhm,
but I feel like women have heard all sorts of things in their life from doctors, many
mhm,
times male, that have made them doubt their bodies. And I just really wanted that synergistic kind of female feel in there. That community has, we bring in somatic breathing experts, we bring in energy healers, we bring in MDs that are the top of their field in OBGYN, reproductive endocrinologists, hematologists, breast cancer specialists. Um, I'm trying to think of all fitness professionals, nutrition, you name it. We have it because, again, this is not a disease, it's a life stage.
mm,
And it's not something that happens to your breasts, your uterus, your vagina, your ovaries. It happens to your entire body because that's where
mm,
estrogen lives. We have dermatologists, we have skincare people, we have everybody in there to talk to you. And so that's the community. And then I have a workplace offshoot because, like you, that's where I come from. And so
mhm,
while I'm hearing so much amazing conversation outside the workplace is a desert for women. And so
mm,
I'm really trying to find ways to bring this into the conversation from a compassionate leadership perspective, from an awareness and education perspective, and not a man versus woman conversation or why does she have something different that I don't have and that sort of thing. And so that is a passion of mine. So those are the offshoots of it, but for the purposes of this community, I'm assuming mainly the free information on the 10 and then the community.
mm. God, Case. You know, I love you bringing this in to corporate America because I got to tell you, and I know we had talked about this on a previous episode, y'all. I'm gonna link Casey's back again. This is round two at the kitchen table. Our first conversation was really around anxiety, burnout, walking out of rooms that no longer served us. So that's a great prelude into this episode with Case if you want to check that out. But Case, I gotta tell you, and I know we've talked about this, as I was coming up in corporate America, and I know you felt this too, we didn't talk about jack shit. Like
No,
you just it was this mantra of don't let them see you sweat. And as women, we never even talked about it.
it it is the main source of stigma and the most delicate dance around menopause. It,
Yeah.
it, I'm happy to share a little bit about this dance if that's where you're going, but you had a
Girl,
question
share the
and I'm ready
dance.
to go. I
Share the
mean,
dance, baby.
I I love this about us. We just don't eat. There's no questions. It just, it just comes out. And if you can hear my snoring dog, y'all, I've got the sweetest 2 10-year-old chihuahuas behind me, and one is just snoring away on the couch. So if you hear a weird noise, I'm not having stomach issues. It's a tiny dog. Um, what is so interesting, right, about this conversation, and when I knew we really had a problem, because Maven started coming out, Carrot, all these great companies that were, in the employer space, they're still there, they're amazing, doing work in that sector, providing benefits, starting mainly at reproductive health,
Mm,
um, and then, kind of branching into menopause, and now have kind of big menopause strongholds. I didn't think this was taboo, right? Like I didn't really know how to talk about it on LinkedIn, but I was head of well-being, so I was already talking about mental health, and I was kind of
yeah.
like, well, not that big of a leap to share this, and it's the truth. So, um, when I started posting out of pure frustration that I was in the workplace doing my job, hadn't slept, was sweating, was having to take clothes on and off on calls and being uncomfortable, was having kind of um just not being able to deal with the crap anymore. And a lot of that is age too and wisdom and whatever, and I don't regret that part of it, but like all this was going on and I kind of started posting about it just because LinkedIn's like my therapy sometimes. Good
Mm-hmm.
advice. I have a coach and a therapist too, but
Yeah.
I like to tell the truth. And women came out of the woodwork, but then there was another group that was like, I love everything you're saying, but I'm not gonna like anything you say ever. I'm not gonna share anything you say. I don't want people to know.
Mm,
It's hard enough for me as it is. I don't want people thinking that, my mental faculties aren't with me anymore,
mm,
that I'm going to be irritable. I don't want people looking for me, working from home more than others or skipping. So I'm not talking about it. And that's the dance. And so there is this very careful dance as somebody bringing this into this space that, having been there, I'm very cognizant of. And that
mm,
is, we have worked so hard to be treated the same.
mm,
And we have this weird dichotomy in the way we look at equality and equity and the semantics around that. And what has happened is we want to be treated the same because in our mind, same equals fair.
mm,
And what's interesting about that is one of us can have babies and one of us can't. So, how can we be treated the same and have that be fair? Right. And I think that is what's tricky is, I'm not saying women should be put on a pedestal and revered as mother and be able to get away with whatever garbage they want in the workplace. What I'm saying is, biologically, we are very different. We're
mm,
not the same. And so, how can treating us medically the same be fair? It isn't.
mm,
It puts us at a, you know, place where we're constantly trying to do more or
mm,
the same or anything without the tools to make it a level playing field. It's
mm,
not level, right? And so that's the challenge, is that this does not become some huge, spectacle of inclusivity and women this, men that, and whatever. That's not what this is meant to be. This is a discussion of, we have to acknowledge that biologically and hormonally we're different, not
mm,
lesser, but we require different things to thrive.
mm,
And so rather than hiding and not talking and whatever, those of us who are comfortable need to talk, right?
mm,
We need to have these conversations so that people understand this isn't trying to cheat and get like more remote days, or this isn't
mm,
trying to cheat and get additional medical care or, you know, work in a space that isn't loud or crowded on days when we're struggling or, needing quiet or any of the things that we need. This is just about us trying to have conditions be equanimous, right? So
Yeah.
we can both thrive, not one or the other, not women versus men, not more versus less. Just we're not the same.
Yeah.
And we're not there yet, Meg. And so that's the dance. The dance is we're not there. And for most women, we are terrified
Yeah.
to give people one more reason to put us out to pasture, to write us off, to say, oh, I'd rather hire men or younger people because they're not going to have these problems. But I'll tell you why we do this, why we invest in women. Because the research shows, and it's not crack research, it's Lisa Mosconi, who's one of the most brilliant PhD researcher neuroscientists who's studying the effects of estrogen and menopause in the brain. The brain scans show clearly that as women kind of go through this menopausal transition, we experience brain fog is a myth, by the way. It's cognitive fatigue is the medical term.
Mm,
There is no true brain fog is not a myth. People feel it, right? But it's
right.
it's a form of cognitive fatigue. That's how they talk about it in the medical community. But most women, when they come out the other side, are more creative, more
Mm,
resilient. The brain scans go back up. Everything goes back. There's more compassion. They're better leaders than they even were before. And so this is a question of how much organizational knowledge do these women have? How much work have they put in? You're not going to replace that.
mm,
You're not going to be able to have your companies work in the way that they did. And guess what? If you support women more through this period, they're going to go up and you're going to reap that benefit.
yeah.
Instead of like me and like you and like others, we were like,
Yeah.
right. And then the company loses out on our talent. Right. And so it's a delicate dance to have the conversation in a way that doesn't force women to out themselves,
Mm,
that doesn't make women feel like they have another, mark against us, that at the same time allows us to really have this conversation of, hey, I just need something additional at this moment.
yeah.
And here's what that looks like for me.
Case, I love when you talked about having the courage to speak it if you are comfortable. I think that's one of the hardest damn things to do. Case, reflection, what a gift it is. I look back now and I was like this for the majority of my life. Hell, even before I joined corporate America, this mask hiding,
Mm.
this people pleasing so much, Case, that I didn't even realize it. This whoever you wanted me to be to get the validation in the rooms that I was in. And I never realized that I never had any vulnerability because I didn't know how. And I was so focused on getting the approval. And I think one of the hardest damn things for us to do, especially as women, is to put down that fucking mask and be real. And I would love to ask you when you talked about if you feel comfortable to begin the conversations, how can she do that? How can she put down her mask and find the courage to speak what's going on with her, to write others the permission to do the same? Any nuggets, anything you've seen or anything you've done?
So this isn't mine. This is a belongs to a woman named Rebecca Brown, who runs a brilliant menopause supplement company in the UK called Live Liminal, and I believe they're coming to the US. And when they do, I'll be screaming it from the rooftops because their
Yeah.
products are fabulous. But she said something that I had initially started with, right? Like I had written a couple posts called Reflections of the Menopause Whisperer, right?
Mm,
Because I became the one person in my circle of friends that was willing to be like, is anybody else irritated by this? Because this sucks. Like, this is awful. I feel horrible. Is anyone else feeling this? And what she said is in their research, they found that this is how menopause information travels. There's menopause whisperers kind of in each circle. And Meg, you're being that for your friends and your community by kind of saying, you went back from Florida and you were like, is anyone else here? Like, and then you were like, let me bring this crazy redheaded woman on in her pink to talk about this, right? Like that that is how this information
Mm,
spread. And what I'll say is I feel like courage is this interesting term or concept. I don't know that it was courage that brought me out. I think it was isolation that brought me out. I felt so
mm,
alone. And the silence around this for me was really deafening. And I was at a disadvantage, right? I was in a position where my trademark good, bad, or ugly relatability wasn't there on this one. And I just didn't have people to share it with. And I didn't feel comfortable in my body or my brain. And I was pissed. And that's what made me kind of write that first post was just exasperation that was anybody there? Like, could
mm,
anybody hear me? Right? Like, why was I doing this by myself? Was there anybody? And then all of a sudden it was like, boom, and there was everybody. Um, and so I think it's a little bit that part of there's something other than courage a lot of times that takes you over that line. And for me,
mm,
it was frustration and loneliness. I think the other thing that my coach says to me, and I love this, and I'll probably botch it, but um, a lot of times I'll have ideas just because of how my brain works, I guess, where I'm in front or on the edge of something, and I feel like I'm totally alone. And she'll
mm,
always remind me that just because the women, they're not beside you, Kacy, they're behind you. Like
mm,
everybody's got your back, right? Like they're all there waiting for you to say the thing that you all know. And then they're going to be at your sides and your front and your back. But you're the one feeling it at this moment. And you're the one that has to say or do the thing,
mm,
knowing that they're there. And you know what? They're always there. Like every post feels this way. Everything, every time I share authentically, I don't mean
mm,
like, but yeah, even my research and my writing, sure, fine. Every time I share something, I'm like, is anybody going to care? Like, why does anybody
mm,
care what I have to say? Like, does this matter? And you know what? There is somebody that needed to hear what I said the same way I needed to say it on that particular day. And that is all the confirmation I need to keep moving forward. It's not likes, it's not loves, it's not you're the best person on the planet, it's not people pleasing bullshit. It's that one soul was in the same
mm,
place that I was in that day. And because I opened my mouth,
mm,
they're not by themselves anymore.
mm,
And anything negative that might have happened may not happen now. And that
mm.
is do it.
Case, I fucking love that so much, and I know you hear this too. Um, Being out in the world with so many beautiful women and having them say to me, I would love to share, or I have something I want to share, but I'm scared shitless. Like, who am I to do the thing? And I love you saying that because one thing that I've learned through this journey, and it's scary as all hell, but when you find the courage to put your thing out into the world, and whatever that is, your people will find you and they are looking for you. And they cannot find you until you have the courage or the I might not feel it in the moment, but the just to fucking do it and share it. And I love that they are waiting for you. They're standing behind you. They're cheering for you. They're waiting for you to post the thing to put it out into the world. Case, I want to ask you this. God, I could have you here all damn day. So you had talked earlier on the Fuchsia 10. I want to go back to this because I think it's really powerful on talking about, what you feel comfortable with, what your income, your disposable income is, because that's another thing. This shit is fucking expensive and half of it isn't covered by insurance. And then what your solutions are. And I would love to ask you, have you, and I know this is very personal and it depends on all of these things, but Have you found anything that you've done, whether it's a supplement, whether it's hormone therapy, whether it's that has helped you remedy the perimenopause and menopause symptoms as you're going through the life stage?
Yeah, I mean, I've done it all. So that's really why I wanted to aggregate, but I'm happy to talk about kind of I'll take you through my progression or my journey or my thought process because I think that may help some women. And again, I'm not a doctor. Even if you're taking supplements, you should talk to a naturopathic doctor or a functional MD. Um, just because it's over the counter doesn't mean it's not dangerous, right?
Mm,
Anything I talk about, obviously I have medical professionals, I had a functional MD, I have a MD, I've seen an OBGYN and a reproductive endocrinologist. And so I'm going to say that, you don't need to see all those professionals, right? Because you may not be taking all of the things that I'm taking, but make sure you don't just, go to Dr. Google and then think you know what you need or listen to me and think you know what you need because every menopause is different. So for me, um, I had been on a healing journey with my gut for many, many years since a miscarriage. And so hormones were not something that I wanted to go to first because when I had been on birth control, which is a much higher dose than hormone replacement therapy or menopausal hormone therapy, I'll kind of hear it called both. Um, I had not done well on it later. I had been on it for 15 years, combined oral contraception, because I have endometriosis and it helped me through symptoms. And then when I got off of it and I tried to go back on it, it didn't work for me, right? It was no longer functional and it upset my gut flora. And so my functional MD had made me a little bit nervous about ever taking a hormone again. So I started with supplementation and there are some great supplements out there. There's a lot of snake oil. So
yeah.
again, be a naturopath and they're expensive. Like you'll see something, it'll be like $35 and you're like, great. But like really the therapeutic dose of that something might be 3 or 4 of those capsules. And you would
Mm,
need a naturopath to tell you that. And they might have you take like the compound that's in that supplement with 10 things. So that adds up. So go speak to, a naturopath and really, or a functional MD and really find out about that. So I started kind of with a supplement or supplements. Some were too strong. They had all sorts of different components in them. And then I was put on maca root, which is a great uh, supplement. There's a lot of research on it. It's adaptogen. It's usually fairly safe, but again, check what you're taking.
mm-hmm,
And then was put on a rhubarb extract that a lot of women take. There is research behind hot flashes, night sweats, and stuff like that. So I kind of started there. And then the mental health stuff started really kicking in. And so I asked my doctor for an SSRI. There's two schools of thought on that, right? There's if you've never had one before, some doctors will tell you hormone therapy is your first line, even with mental health challenges. Some doctors will say that's hogwash, right? They want you on an SSRI taking care of your mental health. And so I started Lexapro. And then after the Lexapro, that's really when the hot flashes, night sweats started. I made it about a month. I'm not advocating you even have to make it a day. If you're feeling as cruddy as I am, you call your doctor, you deserve the hormone conversation. Whether or not you can take them, based on your own personal history or your preference, that's going to be your call, but you deserve the conversation. And if
mm,
you can get that conversation from your doctor, there are tons of telehealth services out there. We have all of that information on the Fuchsia tent for you, where you can get those prescription medications if they're right for you. And the hormones with the Lexapro were game changing for me. I had I don't have hot flashes or night sweats anymore. My doctor told me it could be 2 weeks. It was 2 days, and I felt better.
mm,
That doesn't mean that the mental health symptoms got better. That doesn't mean I lost the weight that I had put on from you know use of SSRI and the perfect conditions of menopause that can cause weight gain. Um, and then and I'm really honest with this because I don't ever want women to think that this just looks easy. I just a
mm.
couple month ago, I think a month ago, I started Wegovy because I was really struggling. I had gone from a weight where my body felt good
Yeah.
to a weight where I felt super uncomfortable.
Mm,
I tried to diet it out. I tried to exercise it out. I tried all the things, old and new, and for me, they weren't working. Um, and or they were helping, but I didn't feel comfortable and I was worried. I come from a family with diabetes.
mm,
I've been terrified my whole life of, putting on middle weight because that's a death sentence in my family and everybody's different. So this is not an advertisement for taking 10 drugs. This is not a body shaming conversation about what you look like. This is my personal experience with menopause and perimenopause and the things that I have found to be helpful for me. And the Wegovy, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to stay on it, right? Like there are side effects and things, and I don't know, right? But I can't sit here and say, oh, I'm just, lifting heavy weights and I'm
yeah.
eating lots of protein like everybody says, and it's falling off me. I do both of those things. They're important. But for me, that wasn't happening. And I hit a frustration point and was like, I've got to try something else and see if it helps. And
Mm,
I think that's the message, y'all, is do what helps you. Don't worry
mm,
about what I'm doing. Don't worry about, what some famous
mm,
person, celebrity is doing. Listen, think maybe about like, oh, would this be an option? I don't know. I did the research for you. It's at the Fuchsia tent. Go on there,
wow.
look at all the options, talk to your doctors. And if you cannot find doctors that you trust, if somebody tells you you're too young and you're
Mm,
not, if somebody tells you you're to this and
mm,
that's not true, if somebody thinks they know your body better than you, then it's time to leave that doctor unfortunate relationship because nobody knows your body better than you do. They haven't lived in it,
mm,
know the change. I don't care what education they've had. Just being a doctor doesn't make you a good doctor. There are
mm,
1,500 menopause experts in this country for 75 million women. That's
mm,
it. So doctors didn't get this training in school.
mm,
They're getting it now. Trust yourself,
mm,
trust your community, and find medical support that you deserve,
mm.
not the medical support that you get, right? Like that's my message.
Oh, girl, freaking mic drop. And thank you for being so real about that. I got to tell you, as you're just talking about the struggle with the weight and what you were doing wasn't working, and how you had to look at alternative solutions at this season in your body. I was just talking case to a very dear girlfriend of mine who was almost in tears, case, because she was like, what the fuck, Meg? Like, I am trying so hard to lose this weight. And what I did in my 20s and my 30s aren't working. And thinking that she was jacked up. And you just wrote us a beautiful permission slip that you're not doing anything wrong. It's not you, to look with curiosity, to find solutions that work. And you've built a beautiful community with that, with Fuchsia Tent. Speaking of that, girl, I know that you got to go and do a screening of M Factor. And I want you to leave us today with telling us where the hell we can get more of you, you menopause whisperer.
um, Can I say one more thing that'll help
Girl,
women feel
please.
broken? I'm sorry. I know we're wrapping it, but I think this is so important. So I didn't understand this either. So menopause doesn't necessarily cause weight gain. You'll
Mm,
see women who go through menopause and never put on a pound, but menopause creates a condition where your estrogen drops, your cortisol is on the rise, you're in the peak of your career, you're taking care of families, you're taking care of aging parents, you're stressed all the time. And
mm-hmm,
that, with the declining estrogen, is what leads to the conditions where your body might hold weight. And
mm,
so I just want to say that to say menopause does not make you broken. Menopause does not make there's nothing wrong with you. This is meant to happen, crappy or not. This is how it happens. And there is beauty in menopause when you get to the other side, where you've said, I'm not saying accepting going out to pasture. I'm not accepting, starting to wear all gray and let my hair go away I don't want and feeling unattractive. I'm saying when you accept that you're in perimenopause
Mm,
and there are women all around you going through it and you don't have to take crap anymore.
mm,
You can write your own story, your next chapter, and your
mm,
next chapter is going to be your most vibrant, your most real, and your most you.
mm,
The feeling broken and all the symptoms and all that, they just like fall away. They're there and you find ways to take care of them.
mm,
But it's not about you anymore and the heaviness of, oh, I'm never going to be this again, or I'm never going to be that again. It's I'm going to be this thing
mm,
that I always wanted to be. I'm going to be that person. And I always think of like Iris Apfel with her giant sunglasses and her big caftans. And like that's the me that I want to be. And perimenopause has allowed me to be that woman. I have caftans aplenty. I wear pink all the time. My hair is bright red, right? Like I love who I am now more than I've ever loved me. And so I
mm,
just wanted to leave people with that before I tell you where to find me because all these things we've talked about can feel really heavy and really scary and
mm,
really um defeating, right? Like this is all going to happen to me and I'm going to, feel horrible and that's yeah, 80% of people have symptoms, 20% don't. And of those 80, they're not all as severe as I am. There's everything, along the spectrum. So don't give up hope. Know that community, like the Fuchsia tent, there are others. If you don't enjoy us, there's plenty of communities out there. There's great information on the site. Um, and your life awaits you. Your next
mm,
chapter awaits you. And we need to celebrate it more than baby showers and graduations and getting our period. Like we've made it this long on this planet with all this wisdom, and that needs to be celebrated.
mm.
And now I'll tell you where to find me.
Yes. Tell us. Get a pen and paper ready, my sisters. Tell us, girl.
So I'll start by saying fuchsia is the weirdest spelled word. Everybody spells it wrong. So it's Fuchsia. So think of the bad word, put an H and then SIA. Get rid of the K. Fuchsia. So the fuchsiatent.com is the free site where you can find the fuchsia list. You can find the resources, including the green scale I talked about. You can find all of the other resources, the blog, all that fun information about the community is there. And then the community is the same, the Fuchsia Tent, but it's .mn.co. So like .mighty network mn.co. And then you can find me on Instagram at the Fuchsia Tent, same weird spelling, at KCA_Fleming, if you want to follow kind of my compassion work and some of the other work that I do and or kacyfleming.com if you want to follow my workplace stuff. Too many
Yeah.
websites. Sorry, y'all. I needed like a chapter for that.
Girl, I'll never spell fuchsia wrong again. After that, you're a woman. This is why we're friends. This is why we're friends. Case, I gotta tell you, girl, sitting here across from you today, having another beautiful conversation. I want to tell you, girl, keep going,
Thanks, honey.
keep building because you are writing all of us the permission slip that we didn't know we needed. And it is a gift to hold your hand in this dance of life. I love you, babe.
Love you too.